Hey everyone, welcome to our small footprint. I do have a cooking video for you, but I haven't got it finished editing, and I normally would have a video out this morning. So I thought I would come out here to the property while it's not raining to have a chat and to share the answer for some of the questions that I got asked on Instagram that I answered there, but I thought I'd answer on here as well because I got some repeat questions. So I thought I would do that, and I was just coming out to wander while the kids are inside playing on, I'm not sure what they're doing actually. I think they're doing schoolwork, but the weather is okay at the moment. It's not raining. It's about 7 degrees out here, which is tolerable with a beanie and a jacket on. And perfectly fine if you're actually doing something physical, but I'm just wandering, so it's, beanie, jacket weather. So one of the questions that I get asked a lot a lot over YouTube, over Instagram and things like that is why the kids are dairy-free, why we're dairy-free, because we buy ghee a lot. And when the kids were little, when 5 of the kids were little, Kavik never seemed to have a problem, but the other 5 did. They had some pretty severe intolerances to dairy, to the point of projectile vomiting, severe reflux and diarrhea, and Sonnet got quite bad eczema and hives and things like that. Surreal ended up in hospital, failure to thrive, and so did the twins at one point, and all to do with intolerances and things like that. So I had to remove all dairy from my diet because I breastfed, and we had to learn how many things had traces of dairy in it and remove them. We did see an allergist a few years back and got some allergy testing done, mainly on the twins because they were having some issues, and they all came back very mild with the problem, but because we've had it out of our diets for so long, it just doesn't seem necessary to bring it back in. So we did bring in, with the allergists, when we were discussing it with them, we brought in fermented dairy because that would make my life easier. So I make cow's milk yogurt. So I just use UHT milk to make my yogurt, and that's cheaper and more efficient for me. And we do milk kefir, which I then use for baking or smoothies. So it helps me to be able to just make milk kefir, have that sitting in the fridge, and I can use that for muffins, scrambled, like frittatas if I want to, though I do use coconut cream a lot for that sort of stuff. It gives me another option. So having the milk kefir there works, and the milk kefir ends up cheaper than coconut cream for everything. So that's why we do that. So we use ghee because we trialed it and it worked, and we missed butter. I missed butter. Darryl doesn't do lactose at all very well. He heavily regrets it if he consumes it. So, but for me, I still can consume dairy with no problem. So I buy myself a bit of cheese that I have on my pizza. I make myself a big tray of smoked mac and cheese every now and again, and then I freeze it in meal-sized portions so I can reheat it when the kids are having something I don't want to have. But we trialed ghee and we don't seem to have a problem with it. Now, we don't overuse any of these things. Like, we don't overuse the kefir. The kids share the yogurt. Like, I make a 2-litre container of yogurt and they have it over 2 days. So they're not having huge quantities of any of these dairy products, and I think that's what works for us. So we'll continue to do that. Dairy is hard to store anyway. So like if we were buying fresh milk or fresh butter or fresh cheese, we would require the space to do that, and we wouldn't get a cow because we don't have pasture. So the cost of feeding a cow would be too high. I have considered goats and then using the goat's milk and trialing that, but goats are escape artists as well, so we'd have to have some really secure fencing, and at the moment it's just not on the cards. So also in regards to ghee, I get asked all the time why I don't make my own. Well, butter is not cheap. So Costco's prices have gone up recently, which is unfortunate, but prior to that their ghee was $29.99 for 2x1 litre jars, and they're a really nice 1 litre glass jar that I reuse for a lot of things as well. So at $15 for a litre, that worked out pretty cost efficient because butter was about $5 per 500 grams. And by the time you processed it, you'd have some losses because you have to take the solids out and the time required to process it. And then you'd have to jar it anyway. Ghee is shelf stable, so it doesn't require processing time, but you still have to put it in jars and store it on the shelf, hot pack, and let it seal itself as much as possible. So by the time I did all that process, there would be no real price savings at $5 per 500 grams. So ghee has gone up slightly, which was a little bit of a hit, but butter has also gone up. So butter, I think I checked Coles and Woolworths and that, and even the home brand butter was now, I want to say $6 per 500 gram or something similar. It was more expensive than it has been. So realistically, the ghee going up, even going to butter, would not be worthwhile. You can buy a 10 kilo pail of ghee on eBay, and it's a New Zealand grass-fed ghee. It looks pretty good, but it does require shipping as well. So the price of it ends up being much the same price as buying it from Costco, so long as the Costco price doesn't go up too much. And you'd have to decant it, because my kids like to use it on their flatbreads and things like that. So we always have smaller containers of it, so that when they're using it, they're not putting any contaminants back into large jars and things like that. So if you got a 10 kilo pail, I'd have to decant it into at least litre jars anyway, which brings up the cost of the time required to do it. So far, I haven't found a great option to replace what we're doing. We don't need ghee. I can use lard for a lot of the things that I use ghee for. We enjoy the flavour of the ghee though. Ghee has a buttery flavour. Some people really don't like it, but we enjoy the flavour of it. So I would miss it if we didn't have it, but it is something that we could phase out if we wanted to. And we do phase out things regularly. Like, we go through a process of assessing what we buy and removing certain things that we can replace with single purpose items, single raw ingredients that can make up a purpose. Like, we don't buy, a very broad example, but we don't buy cake mixes, because we can buy flour and sugar and baking powder and make a multitude of things from those, rather than buying cake mixes, if that makes sense. So it is something that we could phase out. I don't know. We'll have to figure out as we go along. I will assess the pricing every 6 weeks as I go into Costco and see how far I'm prepared to allow the price to go up before I decide that it becomes sort of an unnecessary item, and then go from there. We'll have to see. So that was one of the questions that I got a lot of. What else did I get? All right, I got a lot of questions about my sourdough as well. So I will try to share more. So obviously my videos are very much an overview of my day rather than being precise about something. And that is partly due to the fact that I just don't have a whole lot of time in between everything else to detail it. But also my kitchen isn't set up for it. So while I'm in Brisbane at this shopping trip, I'm picking up some decking timber, some secondhand decking timber that we're going to use to extend the kitchen space, and we're going to construct a bit of a pantry in that space to put out my new shelving. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, I managed to score some secondhand shelving from one of the food works, the local food works. They were refurbing and they were selling the bays. So I did a test, put it up so that we could make sure we had all the pieces, and did a little bit of a test. And for each half shelf, and there is 5 half shelves, but we'll probably use the bottom one not for jars, per bay, and they're double bayed. So 8, 16, 20, 32 half shelves on the fly there. 32 half shelves on the 2 sets of shelving that we got, and I worked out that each half shelf would hold 50 of my number 27 jars. So number 27s are a bit narrower than a quart jar, so it would hold less quart jars. But say that's similar to a pint width, probably. It's probably a little bit narrower than a pint as well. But anyway, so that's a lot of jars. So that way we'll have that inside a somewhat closed room, which we will try and line with some insulated panels or something like that. And then that can stop the jars from fluctuating in temperature as much, but also keep them a little less dusty and dirty. So that's the plan anyway. So when we extend the kitchen space and put that pantry up, the plan is to rearrange the kitchen a bit as well. So my oven isn't working at the moment, so we need to get rid of it. It's the third oven I've had since I moved out here, and I think a lot of the problem is they're just not meant to be used outdoors. There's dust, dirt, weather. Whilst it's undercover, it's still hitting the elements. But also, I use it a lot, and these are just home ovens. So anyway, we find that I think it's the thermocoupler that goes. So you turn them on, you get them lit, because it's a LPG stove. You turn it on, you get it lit, and then you walk away and you come back and it's gone out. So you can get it to spark, you can get it to light the element, but you can't get it to hold the element. So from my understanding, it's something to do with the thermocoupler. Whoops. Something to do with the thermocoupler and something to do with the safety in the stoves. So if you're not in Australia, all stoves in Australia have a safety so that if there's no flame, the gas gets automatically turned off. So I'd say it's to do with the thermocoupler and the sensing of the flame. I looked at replacing them. It's a bit more work than I think I'm comfortable with in a appliance that has a safety built in that we're using in a kitchen. And I buy them secondhand, so I don't pay full price for them, but still, this is our third in 4 years. So what we'd really like to do is get a wood oven. So we have a wood-fired pizza oven, which we really like. I need to buy a flue extension for it, but because where we've got it at the moment, it doesn't draw properly because the flue is too short compared to the height of the roof. So I'm getting a flue extension for it, and we'll move it where that flue can go above the peak of the roof, which will mean that it'll draw better. So at the moment you have to leave the door open when you're using it, which means it still needs a lot of supervision and needs to be on a surface that isn't flammable, which, you know, is fine. But it has a 27 litre, I think it's 27 litre oven cavity, which is fairly large for a pizza oven. It's a Fornetto cast iron pizza oven. And I can do roasts and breads and things like that in it. But because the firebox is directly underneath the cavity and the cavity isn't particularly large, it's too hot to bake in. So nothing I ever bake ends up being cooked well. It always ends up being burnt on the bottom and raw in the middle and things like that. So there's too much bottom heat, too small a cavity, it doesn't work. I did find these lovely company, I will put a link in the bottom because they look fantastic. They're a very large wood-fired oven, and they do a lot of other wood-fired type things as well, outdoor sort of stuff. But it's $2,000. So it's probably something that I will do, but it's going to be a delay on doing it. So for the moment, I've been using the hooded barbecue, which has a similar issues as the pizza oven because the elements are so hot from the bottom. So I did get asked that as well when I showed the pizza oven. I have upside down stainless steel colanders that I put the trays on, and that is to allow the heat to circulate a bit better. If you put the trays directly on the grills, then everything burns at the bottom and doesn't cook all the way through when you're baking something. So it's working okay, except that one side is an open grill, one side's a solid plate. The open grill stuff, the bottoms still tend to burn a little bit. So I need to get a solid plate for that side, and I think that will help. But it still isn't perfect, but we're getting there. But it's gas, and we are trying to reduce our gas usage. We have a gas hot water as well, an instant hot water. So we have gas stove, the gas Camp Chef. The smoker is dual fuel, so we use gas to start it and use wood after that. That's the other thing too. This big oven could replace the smoker, so we could get rid of one more appliance, which would be kind of nice. The instant hot water, the barbecue, all of them use gas, which means that we go through approximately, like when you average it out, we go through approximately a 8.5-9 kilo gas bottle per fortnight, and they are on the price rise, but they're about $35-40. So if we could reduce our gas usage, then that would be beneficial. And as you can see, we don't have a shortage of timber. So if we could go more to wood cooking, that would be better. Though we do have to take into account when we do that the oven can't be like right in the kitchen, because in summer we're talking 38-degree days and more. So having a wood stove burning while cooking in there is not going to be pleasant. But we shall see. But I'll put the link to the place down the bottom, because it's a small home, not a home business, because they're bigger than that, but a Australian business run by locals in, I think it was Roma, so don't quote me on that. So I will put the link to that company down below and show you what I'm looking at. It's really lovely, but we will look at replacing that. And I have no idea where I was going with that tangent, because I have just shared and chatted and forgotten. Okay, I think I was talking about instructional videos. So I have a little bit of a problem with instructional videos, in that my kitchen layout is imperfect for it, and time. So thank you everyone who has donated to the Buy Me a Coffee, because I am almost at the point of being able to withdraw that and buy my lavalier wireless mic, which will come in super handy for instructional type videos and will be perfect for spring. But the other thing is that once we get the pantry built and the extension, we're going to rearrange the kitchen. And I think that's the whole reason I was talking about this, and I've come to this point, but anyway. So when we rearrange the kitchen, the hope is to be able to set it up in a way that I can have the camera somewhat in front of me, and you can see the bench and I can talk to it. I don't have to be as close to the camera because I'll have the wireless mic, and I still have to try and do it around children and things like that. But if I can have the camera angle in a way that I can talk to you while I'm cooking, I can give more instruction rather than just the voiceovers. Because the voiceovers, I try and give as much information as possible in the voiceovers, but sometimes something happens while I'm cooking, and it'd be really nice to be able to give you some information about that. And I think that the reason I got started on this was because I was bringing up that I get questions about my sourdough a lot, and I'd really like to give you some more information about the sourdough and how I use my starter, and on a more regular basis of what I do with my starter, how I feed it and how often I feed it, and then what I do with it to use it and all that sort of thing. But it's really hard to do that in voiceover form, just in the little snippets that I have of a daily use. So some instructional videos would be really good for that. I will get there, but it's all a work in progress, and thank you very much for continuing to, deal with how I'm doing it until that point. So, to cover the brief sourdough questions, though, tangent again, the sourdough questions were, for my main bouillets, I tend to use sourdough food bod general basis of recipe. So I will put her link in the bottom. She has a free master recipe that she has on her website with a whole lot of tips and tricks, and she puts some great videos on Instagram to share different processes and to visually show you how she does things, which are great. And so I stick with her basic boulet type recipe, but I do alter it depending on whether I sometimes bump the starter quantity up and then the flour and water quantity down if I need it to rise in a quicker period of time than overnight, or if it's a whole lot colder in weather. And also it depends on the flour. Some flours hydrate better than others, so there is a little bit of tweaking, but that's what I base my boulet dough on because it's nice and simple. I tend to use Emily Raffer's book, Artisan Sourdough for Easy Artisan Sourdough. I've got it linked in the comments before. I already have it linked there, I'm pretty sure, because I really like the book. She has the overnight sourdough baguettes that I really like, so I tend to make them a lot as well. My pizza dough and flatbread dough are my own sort of recipe tweaks, and I desperately need to get the blog up and running for that, but I have put the recipe in comments before as well, and I think I finally mastered my hamburger buns and my sourdough scroll recipes, because I had a lot of problems with brioche rolls and things like that. They were a little too much for us. We didn't need them that rich. We didn't need them. I prefer chewy. They have to be soft, but I wanted some chew to them. So anyway, I think I finally got that recipe working, and today's video was supposed to be scrolls and hamburger buns, but I haven't edited it. So that will come out tomorrow, and I will share that tomorrow or the next day, whenever, and I will share those ratios with you when I do that. So sourdough is such a such a personal thing too. Like everyone likes their sourdough a little differently. Like, you know, when you're making a boule, I quite like it fairly airy and holy. I don't get it that way very well because of cooking appliances, but if I get my wood stove set up properly, then I should be able to get that back to there. And I love the baguettes because they're just so easy to make, and they're lovely and holy, but they're very chewy. But we like that because the whole point of sourdough is that it's not white bread. It's got a different mouthfeel, a different texture, and a different chew, and a different flavour. So I'm not trying to replicate white bread. If I want white bread, I can buy it from the grocery store for 90 cents. Not that we do that very often, because the boys have always had a few issues with preservatives and stuff, and we don't go to the shops. But we do get some in the food hampers, and it is nice. We get that in that monthly food hamper, and we have a couple of like ham, cheese, tomato sandwiches on the, you know, store-bought white bread, and it is lovely. But it's not my preference if I'm baking bread. All right, I think I've rambled well and truly enough. I think this is far too long already, but I thought I would just come out here and share while the kids were amused and Darryl is doing something else, and it's not raining and it's pleasant out here. There's nothing but me and the bush, which is kind of nice. This is the space that I'm going to set up. I think I mentioned it previously. So the chicken pen is over here, and there's this sort of a circular space here that's a bit empty. So the plan is to set this space up with a table and chairs and maybe a little bit of a shelter, and put some native mozzie deterring plants out here, and maybe some flowers and things like that, and have a little bit of a space, because I'll have to have water out here for the chooks anyway, so I'll be able to water stuff if that's what I want to do. So yes, anyway, that is me for today. My rambling chat, I just thought I'd get on here and do it. I do see a lot of other people who do these videos where they wander around and they chat with you, because you have become friends. Like, you know, I chat to you every day, and I enjoy sharing, and I know that you guys enjoy hearing information about what's going on and things like that. So I thought I would do that this morning because I didn't have the other video set for you, and it was a fairly quiet morning. So I did that, and hope you enjoyed, and I will see you again in the next couple of days. I will get I made cinnamon scrolls, apple scrolls, and hamburger buns on the current video that I've got sitting waiting to be edited. So I will do that and share it. Other than that, we have the hamper coming this weekend, so I'll make sure to share that one as well. And I've got all the prep leading up to groceries. So I pulled my planner out this morning to work out, to start on my inventory and stuff. So I got my master list getting sorted, and working on what I've got left and what I'm going to use in the next 10 days and things like that. And I will start to share all of that too. I need to inventory my fridge and freezer and get it cleaned out, because we have that quarter of a cow coming on the 27th of July as well, and I will make sure to share that too. So lots coming up, but today was just a hey, how you going? Here's some answers to some questions, and come and join me in my nice and quiet bush without children for a change. And I will see you again next time. Thanks guys for watching.